Okay, so I've been working on a high aspect wing. I tried years ago, but that was before I was sort of knew what I was doing. But I think it's time to revisit it and try out a prototype, and if that works, we'll see what happens. But this one's about 45 inches in wingspan, about 1,700 square centimeters in area, and it looks really high aspect here, but there is about 15 millimeters that I have cut off, and that's just for machining purposes, because that trailing edge is going to get very thin, and I think I've come up with a method to make that work out in the end. So we'll dive into that a bit later, but I looked at a lot of wings out there that were working pretty well, and I kind of designed something, took a bunch of designs and kind of came up with this. So it's pretty flat, pretty high aspect, and the tips, they're left squared again for machining purposes, otherwise it just gets too thin. So, you know, imagine kind of rounding those tips after the machining's done. The profile, I think, is pretty good. I mean, we're gonna find out. So it's kind of a first go here, and yeah, so I have the stock prepped, or I'm waiting for it to glue up right now. And for this, I'm going to, at least with the first one, I'm going to try machining it out of some plywood that I've used in the past, and it machines okay. We'll find out. Again, my main worry is just how thin some of these areas are getting on the wingtips and on the trailing edge. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So here is the stock that I have prepped right here, and this is the plywood that I'm going with. I think it pretty much has to be plywood, just how thin the whole wing is going to be. I don't think you'll be able to have the strength and the stiffness with foam, but I'm open to trying it out. But at least for this first one, I'm going to be using this as a core material. And so you can see I just needed to kind of double it up towards the wingtips to accommodate the curvature, or the anhedral of the wingtips curving down there. All right, so the easy side is done, which is the bottom, and it turned out great. Now it's time to flip it over and then do the top side, and this is where I'm pretty sure we're gonna run into some issues, but who knows. So really what it comes down to is this trailing edge and parts of these wingtips, although I did leave a lot of material because A, I expected it to get super thin, and B, we're going to round this out anyways in the final sand process. Yeah, I'm gonna flip it and mount and then mill the top side, and we'll see what happens on that trailing edge. All right, so it's cut out and it came out actually pretty good. I did leave the height a little bit thicker, so this is actually maybe 1.5 millimeters thicker than it should be. Because I just wanted to make sure the first one turned out somewhat decent. So on further tests, I guess I'll go reduce that thickness and just see just about where is too thin. But yeah, you can see it turned out very well. And so now it's just kind of time to fill some of the voids. That's some of the issues, I guess, with really any wood product, is there's going to be some imperfections. So right here, that'll have to be filled in, right here as well, and a few other little spots up in here. But you know, that kind of work needs to be done anyways as you glass up the wing. But it's just, I guess, one extra step besides, you know, you don't run into that problem with the foam because it's a very consistent product. But this turned out very well. It's holding its shape, and I'm actually quite surprised that the first go turned out this great. And then as far as weight goes, this thing feels pretty good. This particular hardwood plywood is relatively light in its weight, and that's part of the reason why I chose it. But this is pretty good, and I believe maybe with a decent glass layup, I think you'll be able to have decent stiffness. I might just go carbon because I happen to have a lot of it on hand, and I know that'll end up being overall a bit stiffer, certainly with less weight. So yeah, overall not bad, and I'm quite pleased with this initial test run here. Okay, so I did make some changes. That first wing, the trailing edge didn't really work out, so I went in there and just made the back edge a bit thicker, because when you sand this down to its final shape, you can take that trailing edge thinness and you can easily get it to the proper thinness just from sanding this on the top side here. So here is a wing that's pretty much ready to go. So it turned out really well. I really like the shape of it. And yeah, next step is just going to be probably going to use some carbon. I'm not exactly sure what type of carbon and how much, but that's what's next, and it's turning out pretty good so far.